A trail camera is not brave. It does not know it is in the woods. It does not know what time it is, except for the little timestamp burned into the corner of the frame. It does not get nervous when the branches start moving. It does not turn around when something steps behind it. It just waits. And then, when the sensor catches motion, it records. Sometimes what it records is exactly what researchers hope to find: a rare animal moving through a place where almost no person would ever see it. Sometimes it catches a predator standing where people did not think one would be. Sometimes the image is so strange that even after you read the explanation, your brain keeps looking for something else in the frame. And sometimes the camera does not solve anything. It only gives us a few seconds of movement, a shape in the trees, a pair of eyes, a light that should probably be an insect or dust or a camera artifact, but still does not quite sit right when you see it beside a deer in the dark. Tonight, we are looking at 11 trail cameras. Some of these recordings are confirmed by researchers, wildlife agencies, or conservation groups. Some are only claims, and we will say that clearly when we get there, because a trail camera can prove that something was there, but it cannot always tell us what we are looking at. This is After Dark Dispatch. 11 trail cameras were left alone in the woods, the desert, the mountains, and places most people will never walk through at night. Some captured rare animals that were never supposed to be easy to see. Some captured dangerous wildlife in places where people needed to know it had returned. And a few captured images that are still sitting in the uncomfortable space between probably explainable and then why does it look like that? No fake certainty. No claims of proof where the sources do not support it. Just the footage, the reporting behind it, and the question the camera left behind. In southern Arizona, in the rugged Sky Islands, a remote camera recorded an animal that most people in the United States will never see outside a documentary. A jaguar, not a bobcat, not a mountain lion seen at a strange angle. A male jaguar known as Cinco, documented by the University of Arizona Wildcat Research and Conservation Center. That is what makes this first segment so powerful. There is no need to inflate it into anything else. The confirmed fact is already unsettling enough. A large spotted predator moving through the desert and mountain landscape at night, passing through the camera's view like it belongs there. Because it does. Jaguars once ranged much farther north than most people realize. Today, confirmed sightings in the American Southwest are rare enough that each one becomes important. Researchers do not need the camera to create a mystery. They need it to create a record. The trail camera does what a human observer probably could not do. It waits without scent, without footsteps, without a flashlight beam. It sits in the heat and the dark until an animal that avoids people moves past it for a few seconds. And in those few seconds, the frame changes how the place feels. Before the footage, that stretch of southern Arizona is just rough country. Rocks, brush, water, shade, borderlands, heat. After the footage, you understand that something powerful is still using it. The camera catches the jaguar low to the ground, built for silence, patterned for a world of shadow and broken light. Even when you know exactly what it is, there is a moment where your brain has to catch up. The shape is too big for a house cat, too marked for a mountain lion, too smooth and deliberate to feel accidental. That is the strange thing about verified footage. It does not make the woods less mysterious. It makes them more real. The University of Arizona documentation gives this segment its footing. National Geographic and local Arizona reporting add the wider context. But the center of the story is simple. A remote camera was placed in a landscape people do not fully control, and it recorded a predator that moves through that landscape whether anyone believes it is there or not. This is what trail cameras do at their best. They do not ask us to believe, they make us look. The second camera was in Montana. And this time, the recording mattered not because the animal was beautiful, but because it was dangerous. Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks confirmed a grizzly bear sighting in the Bangtail range after a trail camera captured images of a single subadult grizzly on national forest land. According to the agency, it was the first formal documentation in the Bangtail since recovery efforts began. That wording matters. It does not mean no bear had ever crossed the area before. It does not mean the woods had been empty for 50 years. It means this was formal documentation, the kind of record wildlife officials can point to, evaluate, and use when they talk to the public. For people who live, hike, hunt, or work in bear country, that distinction is not academic. A blurry rumor is one thing. An agency-confirmed trail camera image is another, because a grizzly does not need to be close to be relevant. If one is using a range, people nearby need to act like they are sharing the landscape with a large predator. That means storing food correctly, carrying bear spray where recommended, making noise in the right places, not approaching tracks, carcasses, or the animal itself, and, more than anything, understanding that the camera did not create the risk. It only showed it. There is something deeply uncomfortable about that. Before the image exists, the danger can feel theoretical. After the image exists, it has weight. It has fur, shoulders, claws, and a timestamp. The trail camera is not dramatic. It does not zoom in because it is scared. It does not whisper that something is coming. It just shows a bear standing where officials can now say, yes, it was there. In a weaker video, this segment would become a headline about a bear returning after half a century with all the nuance stripped away. We are not doing that. The confirmed claim is narrower and stronger. Montana FWP confirmed a grizzly sighting in the Bangtail range through trail camera images and described it as formal documentation tied to recovery-era records. That is enough. Because sometimes the most disturbing thing a trail camera can capture is not an unknown animal. It is a known one, in a place where people had started to behave as if it was not there. The next recording looks at first glance like something a person might misread immediately. A small animal appears in the frame in Oregon's Siskiyou Mountains. It has a long tail, a narrow face, bright eyes, and a body that can look oddly upright depending on the moment you pause the footage. It is not a cryptid. It is a ringtail. Payette reported on the trail camera footage, and Pacific Forest Trust connects the location to Epstein Family Forest near Ashland, Oregon, a conservation and restoration project. The source map identifies this as verified rare wildlife. The animal is real. The footage is not a claim that something unknown to science has been found. And that is exactly why this segment belongs in the video. Because trail cameras are very good at making real animals look impossible. Infrared light changes texture. Motion blur stretches limbs. Eye shine makes a small mammal look bigger and stranger than it is. A normal pause in an animal's movement can look like a pose. A single frame can turn a quick step into a silhouette that does not feel like it belongs to any known creature. But when you slow down and do the work, the mystery becomes more interesting, not less. The ringtail is elusive. It is nocturnal. It is exactly the kind of animal that could live near people without most people ever knowing how often it passes through. A trail camera catches that hidden life. It gives us a clean reminder that "I have never seen that before" is not the same as "no one knows what that is." There is a quiet lesson in this clip. Not every disturbing frame is unexplained. Not every strange shape in the woods is evidence of something outside biology. Sometimes the woods are full of animals that are perfectly real, perfectly documented, and still strange enough to make you lean toward the screen. That is not a disappointment. That is the point. The camera is showing us a layer of the world we normally miss. The small, silent traffic of the night, moving through conservation land while people are asleep. And once you have seen it, the empty forest does not feel empty anymore. In Minnesota's Greater Voyageurs ecosystem, trail cameras have recorded a different kind of unease, not a rare animal standing alone. Behavior. The Voyageurs Wolf Project has used remote cameras to study wolves and the hidden routines of the landscape. One reported clip involved wolves, a black bear, and a fish. Payette summarized the footage as a rare wolf and bear interaction around that fish, and the Voyageurs Wolf Project has broader documented work on wolves fishing in the area. That detail is what makes the scene feel different. We tend to imagine the woods as a background: trees, water, dark spaces between trunks. We imagine animals passing through it, but we rarely get to see the small negotiations that happen when nobody is watching. Who gets close? Who backs away? What a predator is willing to challenge? What another animal decides is not worth the fight? The trail camera records that hidden routine without turning it into a movie. No narrator is present in the forest. No researcher is standing there with a light. The camera simply catches the moment when two kinds of predator behavior overlap. A fish should be a small thing, but in the frame, it becomes a reason for wolves and a bear to be in the same story. There is no need to exaggerate this into violence. The point is not that the animals are fighting to the death. The point is that the camera shows how much happens in the woods without us. A trail you might walk at noon, a shoreline you might think of as quiet, can become a completely different place after dark. Research cameras are especially useful because they give context. They are not just collecting scary clips for the internet. They are part of a long attempt to understand what animals do when human presence is removed from the scene. That makes the footage more credible. It also makes it more unsettling. Because once you know the camera has caught wolves fishing, bears checking the same spaces, and predators moving around the same food source, you stop thinking of the forest as scenery. You start thinking of it as a system. And a system does not need us to be there before it starts moving. The fifth trail camera was set up by wildlife biologists in Idaho. The images that came back were of wolverines in Payette National Forest, captured in February and March and later posted publicly. Reporting from East Idaho News and the Idaho Statesman described how those pictures drew attention online. But the important part is the source behind them. This was agency and conservation-backed wildlife monitoring, not a random paranormal upload. Wolverines are built for the kind of country most people do not casually enter. Snow, elevation, distance, rough forest, winter silence. They are powerful animals, but they are also rare enough in many people's experience that a camera image can feel almost unreal. A low body moving through snow, a dark shape on a white landscape, the sense that the camera has caught something from the edge of a much harsher world. Again, the source status matters. This is not unknown creature in Idaho. It is not an impossible animal story. It is a record of rare wildlife from cameras set by people whose job is to understand what is moving through the forest. And yet it still fits after dark dispatch. Because fear is not the only reason a frame can stay with you. Sometimes the feeling is older than fear. It is the realization that the map is not the territory. A forest labeled on a screen or crossed by a road can still contain animals that most of us will never encounter in person. The Wolverine footage works because it feels like evidence from a place that did not ask to be seen. The camera sits there through cold hours, waiting for motion. Then the animal appears. No announcement, no explanation. Just a shape in the snow, proving that the forest has been active while everyone else was somewhere warm. For production, this segment should lean into the winter atmosphere. Wind, dark tree trunks, the hard little click of a trail camera waking up. But the narration should stay grounded. The images are interesting because they are real, not because we pretend they are something else. That is the line this episode keeps walking. The woods are strange enough before we start lying about them. On Truwana, also known as Cape Barren Island, motion cameras were used for a survey connected to Truwana rangers and conservation partners. ABC News reported that the cameras captured animals such as blonde echidnas, white-footed dunarts, Latham snipe, and feral cats. Petapixel and Digital Camera World also covered the survey, noting the scale and rarity of what the cameras revealed. This segment is important because it changes the geography of the episode. We are not only in American forests anymore. We are on an island landscape where cameras help document animals that may be difficult to find any other way. And we are also in a story where conservation, land management, and local knowledge matter. That means the tone has to be respectful. The island is not a spooky backdrop. The animals are not props. The camera survey is part of a real effort to understand what lives there and what pressures the ecosystem faces. But even with that careful framing, the footage still has the trail camera magic. There is something uncanny about a motion camera revealing a pale echidna moving through a frame, or a tiny nocturnal animal appearing where a human observer might have seen only empty ground. The camera turns absence into evidence. It proves that the landscape is layered with lives that are almost always just out of view. And then there is the contrast. Rare native animals on one hand, feral cats on the other. The same camera system that can produce wonder can also show risk. It can reveal what conservationists hope to protect and what threatens it. That is why trail camera footage is more than a collection of weird images. It is surveillance of a world that does not perform for us. It catches whatever passes, whether the result is beautiful, worrying, or hard to categorize. By this point in the video, we have seen a jaguar, a grizzly, a ringtail, wolves, a bear, wolverines, and island wildlife. All of them are real. All of them are documented through stronger sources. Now the episode can move into stranger territory, but the audience has been given a standard first. If something is confirmed, we say confirmed. If it is not, we do not pretend. The seventh segment is where the tone shifts. In Southwest Florida, the South Florida Wildlands Association shared a trail camera image from public lands that started a much more grounded kind of debate. Not a debate about whether the animal was impossible, a debate about which real animal it was. The Miami Herald reported on the image after the association asked people online to help identify a strange, bright-eyed animal in the frame. The common guesses stayed inside biology: a domestic or feral cat, a bobcat, maybe a panther-like misread, depending on how viewers interpreted the body, eyes, and angle. That is why this segment earns the grounded mystery slot. The question is clearer. The source path is stronger. And the mystery does not need to pretend it is more than it is. But it is useful for a different reason. It shows how quickly a familiar animal can become unsettling when a camera catches it at the wrong angle, in the wrong light, from the wrong distance. South Florida is already a place where wildlife identification can get messy. Native species, invasive species, public lands, wetlands, dense vegetation, night images, glowing eyes. A single frame can flatten all of that into a question that thousands of people answer differently. That context matters. Because a trail camera does not give you a perfect witness, it gives you a frame. Sometimes the animal is moving. Sometimes the infrared image changes proportions. Sometimes the head turns at the worst possible second. The eyes catch the flash too hard, and suddenly a known animal feels wrong. This is the kind of clip that internet captions love to overstate. What is this thing? Cat? Bobcat? Panther? Something else? The responsible answer is less dramatic and more interesting. It may be a known animal, seen through a camera system that makes certainty harder than viewers think. This segment should be presented as a grounded mystery, not a paranormal one. The question is not whether something impossible walked through Florida. The question is why a real animal can look so strange when the only witness is a motion sensor and a lens. That is a different kind of discomfort. It does not come from believing the impossible. It comes from realizing how little information a single frame can actually give you. And that is the perfect bridge into the final section of the episode, where the claims get stranger and the caveats become part of the story. In Wilmer, Alabama, a game camera reportedly captured a bright, egg-shaped light near deer. Coast to Coast AM reported the case through a New Fork-submitted series of images. According to that reporting, the light appeared near deer over a period of time, and the submission stood out to the person reporting it because it looked unusually bright. That is the claim. And the word claim is important here. This is not the same kind of source as the University of Arizona Jaguar. It is not an official wildlife agency confirmation like the Montana Grizzly. It is a reported submission involving game camera photos and an unexplained-looking light. So the segment has to stay in that lane. Trail cameras create light anomalies all the time. Insects close to the lens can become glowing shapes. Moisture can scatter light. Dust can look enormous when it passes close to infrared illumination. A spider thread, a reflection, a bug wing, even a small technical issue can become something that appears far larger than it really is. And still, when an image shows deer in the dark and a bright shape near them, people are going to look twice. That is the tension. Not that the photo proves anything beyond the image itself. It does not. Not that we know exactly what caused it. We do not. The tension is that a simple backyard or wooded camera can record a light that feels out of scale with the calm animals around it. The deer do not explain it. The timestamp does not explain it. The frame only preserves it. This is where the episode can let the audience sit with ambiguity without selling them certainty. The narrator should say plainly that this is a submitted light anomaly, not proof of anything. The visuals should label it the same way. And then we move on. Because a mystery segment is strongest when it knows what it is. A question, not an answer pretending to be evidence. The ninth recording takes us to Paraguay and to a claim connected with Ybycui National Park. Paraguayan outlet Extra reported that Nathan Seastrand believed a camera trap had captured something he associated with the Pombero, a figure from regional folklore. Coast to Coast AM also listed the story in its creatures and legends coverage. This is one of the most delicate segments in the video. Because folklore is not decoration. The Pombero is not just a scary label to paste over a shadow in the woods. It belongs to a cultural context, and the responsible way to handle the clip is to say exactly what the sources allow. The creator associated the figure with the Pombero. That is different from saying the camera captured the Pombero. We are not saying that. What we can say is that the claim exists, that local reporting covered it, and that the image or footage was interpreted by the person who posted it through a folklore lens. That alone can be compelling. Trail cameras do not record meaning. They record motion, light, and time. Meaning arrives afterward when people look at the frame and bring their own knowledge, fear, stories, and assumptions to it. In Arizona, researchers looked at the frame and saw a documented jaguar. In Montana, wildlife officials saw formal evidence of a grizzly in a range where that mattered. In Paraguay, the person connected the shape to folklore. The camera is the same kind of witness. The interpretation is different. That is why this segment should be atmospheric, but careful. Use the forest, the camera trap, the reported claim, and the cultural context. Do not add fake history. Do not make the figure more certain than it is. Do not turn regional belief into a cheap jump scare. The honest version is strong enough. A camera trap was left in a national park. A strange figure or shadow appeared in the footage. The person connected it to the Pombero. Local media reported the claim. And beyond that, the source map does not let us go. So we stop there. Sometimes the restraint is what makes the story feel more real. The 10th camera gives us the exact kind of segment this episode needs before the closer. A mystery that looks impossible for a moment, then becomes more useful once you treat it carefully. At Bristol Zoo Project, a trail camera in the Bearwood habitat captured an odd-looking animal that people online described as winged, horned, or mythical. Outdoors covered the story, and other write-ups pointed to the more grounded explanation. The image was likely a muntjac deer, distorted by night vision, motion, or the camera's exposure. This is not a segment about proving that the zoo captured a fantasy animal. It is a segment about how a real animal can become a false legend in a single frame. That matters, because by this point in the video, we have already looked at several categories of trail camera evidence. We have agency-confirmed wildlife. We have research cameras. We have conservation images. We have submitted anomalies. We have a folklore-linked claim. Now we need a control case. The Bristol image is perfect for that because it shows how the brain can be pulled in two directions. At first glance, the shape appears wrong. The head, ears, body, and blur do not immediately settle into a familiar animal. If you pause only on the strangest frame, it is easy to understand why people started joking or speculating about something mythical. But then, the more grounded explanation arrives. A muntjac deer is a small deer species already present in Britain. Trail cameras can create doubled edges, ghosted shapes, and strange silhouettes when an animal moves through low light. What looks like wings may be the camera holding a trace of movement. What looks like a horn may be angle, blur, ears, or exposure. And suddenly, the strange frame becomes something else. A lesson. Not every trail camera mystery should be left unresolved just because unresolved feels better. Sometimes the best thing a strange image can do is teach us how the mistake happened. This segment also protects the episode from drifting too far into weak claims. Instead of ending the mystery section with the lowest confidence viral clip, we bring the audience back to the method. Look at the source, look at the animal, look at the camera, and ask what the frame can actually support. The answer may be less sensational, but it is stronger. Because once you understand how a muntjac can become a mythical creature online, you understand why every other trail camera claim in this video needs its label. Some images are confirmed, some are reported, some are submitted, and some are explainable if you are willing to let the explanation be enough. The final camera is not here because it is the scariest. It is here because it changes what the whole episode means. Smithsonian reported that trail camera photos captured critically endangered mountain bongos in the Masai Mara forest in Kenya, in a place where conservationists had feared they might have vanished. After jaguars, grizzlies, night shapes, light anomalies, folklore claims, and explained mysteries, the bongo footage brings the story back to something quieter. Survival. A trail camera can make us afraid because it shows us what is moving when we are not there. But it can also give hope for the same reason. It can record an animal that people thought might be gone from a place. It can confirm that a forest still holds something rare. It can turn absence into a living frame. There is a different kind of silence in this segment. Not the silence of a threat outside a tent. Not the silence of a shape between trees. The silence of a forest where a species may still be hanging on, whether humans have noticed or not. That is why this is the closer. Because if we ended on the viral cryptid debate, the episode would leave the audience with the weakest evidence. It would reward the least certain clip with the final word. Instead, we end with a camera doing something more powerful than feeding a rumor. We end with a camera documenting life. The mountain bongo is not frightening in the way a grizzly is frightening. It is not visually strange in the way a ringtail can look strange in infrared. It does not invite the same kind of debate as a dark shape on a reposted clip. But the feeling is still heavy, because a camera was left in the forest and it caught an animal that mattered. An animal people were worried they might not see there again. An animal that, for a few seconds or a few frames, turned a conservation fear into evidence. That may be the most important thing trail cameras do. They remind us that the world is not empty just because we are absent from it. So what did these 11 cameras capture? Some captured confirmed animals. A jaguar in Arizona, a grizzly in Montana, a ringtail in Oregon, wolverines in Idaho, rare wildlife on Truwana, and mountain bongos in Kenya. Some captured behavior, wolves, a bear, and a fish in a forest system that keeps moving whether anyone is watching or not. And some captured questions. A strange animal frame from Florida, a bright light near deer, a folklore-linked claim from Paraguay, and a zoo image that shows how quickly a real animal can become a myth when the camera catches it strangely. That is the honest version. Trail cameras do not always prove the strange thing people want them to prove, but they do prove something else. The woods are active when we are gone. The camera is waiting when we are asleep, and sometimes when the sensor wakes up, it catches a few seconds of a world that was never waiting for us to understand it. If you want the next dispatch, subscribe. And the next time you see an empty trail at night, remember, empty is just what it looks like before the camera turns on.